This is VOA News. Reporting by remote, I'm Joe Ramsey. Russia has replaced the commander of its Crimea-based Black Sea Fleet, a state news agency reported on Wednesday, after a series of explosions rocked the peninsula it annexed in 2014 and had previously seen as a secure rear base for its war in Ukraine. Moscow blamed saboteurs for the blast that engulfed an ammunition depot in northern Crimea on Tuesday. Ukraine has not officially taken responsibility, but has hinted at it. The apparent Ukrainian capability to strike deeper into Russian-occupied territory, either with some form of weapon or with sabotage, indicates a shift in the conflict. On Wednesday, Russia's RIA news agency cited sources as saying the commander of its Black Sea Fleet had been replaced with a new chief. After 1 million deaths from COVID, the head of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced a shakeup of the federal health agency. The AP's Ed Donahue reports.
Dr. Rochelle Walensky says the CDC fell short responding to the coronavirus and needs to become more nimble. She calls this a CDC initiative and was not directed by the White House. During the pandemic, there was frustration, especially among Republicans in Congress, like Texas's Chip Roy, over CDC guidance.
The vaccines work or they don't work? Do the masks work or they don't work? I'd like to know which it is.
The changes include restructuring the CDC Communications Office and further revamping websites to make the agency's guidance for the public more clear and easier to find. It has long been criticized for focusing on collection and analysis of data, but not acting quickly against new health threats. Walensky says this will not simply be moving boxes on the organization chart. I'm Ed Donahue.
This is VOA News. Syria is not safe yet for millions of refugees to start going back home, a Canadian minister cautioned during a visit to Lebanon on Wednesday. He spoke days after Lebanese officials announced a plan to start returning 15,000 Syrian refugees to their war-shattered country every month. More than 5 million Syrians fled their country when the conflict began 11 years ago, with most of them now living in neighboring countries, Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. Lebanon, which has taken in 1 million Syrians, is facing an economic meltdown, an unprecedented financial crisis, and is eager to see refugees return. Kenyan President-elect William Ruto says that if there's a court challenge to the election results, quote, we will engage in those as the country awaits a likely petition from losing candidate Raila Odinga. Ruto, Kenya's deputy president, was declared the winner of last week's close election, but the Electoral Commission publicly split minutes before Monday's declaration. Odinga, an opposition figure in his fifth attempt at the presidency, has said his campaign will pursue all constitutional and legal options to challenge the election results. He met his team behind closed doors Wednesday. They have 7 days from the declaration to file at the Supreme Court. The trend of rising U.S. traffic deaths that began 2 years ago is continuing into this year, AP correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
Roadway deaths rose 7% during the first 3 months of the year to an estimated 9,560 people. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says that's the highest number for a first quarter in 2 decades. Traffic deaths have risen ever since the pandemic lockdowns eased in 2020 and as people returned to work and started taking more road trips. The agency says people drove about 40 billion more miles in the first quarter than a year earlier. That's a 5.6% increase. Before 2020, the number of fatalities had fallen for 3 straight years. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Recapping our top story, Russia has replaced the commander of its Crimea-based Black Sea Fleet, a state news agency reported on Wednesday, after a series of explosions rocked the peninsula it annexed in 2014 and had previously seen as a secure rear base for its war in Ukraine. The apparent Ukrainian capability to strike deeper into Russian-occupied territory, either with some form of weapon or with sabotage, indicates a shift in the conflict. Find more at voanews.com. Reporting by remote, I'm Joe Ramsey.